Reid, so glad you're here. How long have you been covering the Oilers? Your entire life?
No, nowhere near my entire life. I've been watching them almost my entire life. I have been doing this exact job for almost 11 seasons. Whenever the Stanley Cup final ends, that will be the conclusion of 11 seasons doing this job, which is hosting the Face-Off show, which is what we call our pregame show, and Overtime Open Line, which is our after-the-game show with phone calls and analysis. And 2 years prior to that, I was the producer for another show we have on 630 Ched called Oilers Now with Bob Stauffer. So I was sort of on the fringes of covering the team firsthand, but was mostly in a studio for Bob's show.
So 11 years, I think it's safe to say this season has a bit of a different feel.
It does. Now, to be fair, I think other seasons have felt a little different than the first three I did, which were the last three of the Decade of Darkness. But this one, obviously the first time they're in the Stanley Cup final, and the first time since 2006. So, yeah, it feels different. Ever since Sunday night, we'll see what it feels like today out in the city, because I think people will change their focus a little bit, but it's just been joy in Edmonton. And for Oilers fans all over the world, but a lot of them are here. But it's just been joy. I mean, just celebration, relief. I put out a topic on my show last night, and I had no idea if I was going to get any response. And I said, did you or anybody you know, firsthand, cry Sunday night when they won the Western Final? And definitely people did, and definitely there were some emotional stories. Like one gentleman born in 1988, and he's like, of course I don't remember 1990, when they won the Cup. And he goes, 2006 was a big deal, but they didn't win. And, another guy talking about having watched games with his grandfather, who's no longer with us, and what his grandfather would be feeling if he got to see this team. So yeah, it's been emotional, Dan. No doubt about it. It reminds you of what hockey means to people and what the Oilers mean to the fans here.
So Reid, I was talking to my good friends Sean McCormick and Jennifer Hedger, who met at my wedding way back when. They are huge. Well, the dude, as we call him, massive Oilers fan. They flew out for that clinching Game 6. And he said, Dan, never in my life of going to countless Oilers games had I been a part of an atmosphere like that. He said, yes, it was loud. Yes, it was deafening, but it was all game long. He said it was constant chants, and he compared it to like a chain smoker. That's how it was with chants the entire game. He goes, you know how Oilers fans are in the regular season. They're pretty quiet. So even he was taken aback. Did you get a sense of that change in atmosphere?
Yeah, but I think it changed probably during the Vancouver series. I guess if I had to narrow it down, I mean, they've been pretty good in the playoffs. It's been pretty exciting. I think it changed in the Vancouver series because of the stakes of that series, and it was another Canadian team in close proximity. And let's face it, there weren't a lot of Dallas fans in Rogers Place for the 3 games. There was a noticeable amount of Canucks fans, who made the trip. So I think it ramped up there. And then when you're in the West Final, I think 2 years ago, the sense was, okay, that's really cool. We beat Calgary. We know we're not as good as the Avalanche, right? So, but this year it's like, we can actually beat them. Dallas depth, Dallas goaltending, but we're pretty darn good too. So I think because of all that, it did ramp up, and the belief was higher in the fan base, and the excitement was even higher than it was 2 years ago. And yeah, it was interesting though with Game 6 because it was obviously a lot more nervous than I think it might have been because they were just getting completely throttled the entire game. Let's face it, Dan, from a pure, if this was December 14th, we'd be saying, well, that's the worst game they've played this season, and good they won, but now they got to play Tampa Bay on Saturday and Colorado on Monday, and they're going to lose all those. But because it was just a game where they survived and got to the next round, it was just that big explosion at the end. And I loved all the shots that the obviously I didn't see them live, but I go back and watch stuff. the shots of the crowd and people turning around and hugging people like in different rows, and it's like they probably just met that person at the start of the game or maybe in the third period, right? And the shot outside of the plaza, the moss pit as it's called, that was just like bouncing up and down. Just absolutely loved seeing that.
So what you're saying is in 9 months, there's going to be a baby boom in Edmonton.
Now, I should have known you were going to take it there.
But that's a good thing. We need more
see.
humans, don't we?
I don't know if the alcohol intake would have allowed for that as efficiently as.
Yeah, what's it mean? What's this mean for the Edmonton economy? Because I've made it known I'm not a Leafs fan, but I like them to do well in the playoffs because it's good for the economy. For the Oilers making it to the Cup final, like this is in the multi-millions of dollars for the Edmonton restaurant and bars. Yeah,
well, so I mean, I'll try to summarize, and you know it. Probably a lot of people know the Coles Notes if they're Canadian, but obviously the arena opened in the fall of 2016. And at that time, it was just the arena. And Edmonton's downtown, around the arena was okay. I mean, Edmonton's downtown's kind of spotty. But it was like, hey, let's make a district around the arena that they call Ice District. And then it was building up, and a couple of big towers went up. Like there's the big JW Marriott where all the visiting teams stay now. There's another big tower there. And then the pandemic hits, right? And so people can't go to games. Like, unfortunately, in Edmonton, I don't know what it's like out there, but like we lost some really good restaurants, that just couldn't stay open or reach the end of their cycle. So now this is almost like a bit of a bounce back for that people are going downtown again, staying downtown, going early, staying after the game. The weather, it poured rain yesterday, but the weather has been generally pretty good. And as you know, Dan, because I remember having this conversation with you when you worked in Fort McMurray. Like it's not as light out as it would be at Fort McMurray, but it's light out until pretty much 10:30 right now. So that's going to extend too. So that keeps people out as well. So yeah, and we've our global news channel has done stories about the impact for bars and restaurants downtown. So yeah, it's getting people out and about. It's pretty fun.
Do you remember the Ice District at the old Skyreach Center? It was the Forum Inn, which was across the street.
Inn and Coliseum Pizza, which was down 118th Avenue a few blocks. A lot of people went there before games. But yes, around Rexall Place was not a gathering. Well, the arena was a gathering place, but there was nowhere to gather before or after the game, really, with a comfortable walk.
Yeah, the Forum Inn, I remember going into it, I'm like... it's one of those places where you're like, I have to have my back against the wall here. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you didn't want to stay there too long. And the old arena, for people who haven't been to Edmonton, it was on the intersection of a freeway. That's Wayne Gretzky Drive. It was on the intersection of a freeway and then another, like not a freeway, but kind of a main thoroughfare running east and west. So yeah, like you're not... Like, was there a comfortable 6-block, anything within 6 blocks besides the 4, like within 12 blocks? I don't know.
No.
I'm trying to think. Probably not.
Reid, you've been there, so the entire time that Connor McDavid has been there. Now, you would know better than me, but from what I see in his post-game interviews, in his interviews after a practice, he has come out of his shell. He was always... a pre-programmed robot, it seemed. He, as all the players are now, no disrespect to him, but that's how they were told. Okay, here's what you do. Here's never get into trouble. Now he's actually speaking his mind, and he's becoming a different person. Have you noticed that in your time with the team?
Yes, though I think he's still guarded, and if he doesn't want to talk about something, he won't say much. But I do notice he's a little more outgoing and a little more likely to engage. Now, it's hard for him to do that entirely, because if he starts having a little aside with Reid Wilkins, then everybody's going to want one at some point. But definitely, I'd say the last 2 seasons, there's been a change. Like he's been a little more outgoing with his answers. He's been a little more thorough in his answers. He's a little more willing to offer an opinion. I think that probably stems from a couple things. Like, he's now in his late 20s, basically. So you start to be, you figured out your person, even though he had to do it early because of his hockey career, but I think he's figured out who he is and how to interact. And I do think there's the familiarity. I mean, the guys on the Oilers beat haven't changed for a while. Like I mentioned, 11 years for me. I think the only other new guy to come in since then is Daniel Nugent-Bowman from The Athletic. I mean, you got Speck been there, Stoff, Jack, Derek Van Diest, Jim Matheson still around, Rob Tychkowski, like all these guys are around. So whether he likes us or not, they're familiar faces, and he kind of knows what the vibe is from each guy. I think he's still careful though. I don't know if we're ever going to see the full unguarded Connor McDavid with the media. But yeah, I've noticed a bit of a difference for sure.
I saw a clip of him and he was talking to an elementary school class, or he was in a gymnasium, and it was a completely different Connor McDavid, and people are like, oh, why is he not like this with the media? He's like, because he doesn't have to answer questions and he's just hanging out with kids.
Right.
It's good to see a different glimpse. Hey, you mentioned Jack Michaels, the play-by-play announcer for the Oilers. There's a clip going around of him in the final minutes of that game against the Stars. And I love when he gets love because in my mind, he is top 3 play-by-play announcers in the NHL right now.
Well, thanks for saying that about Jack, because he deserves some love. So, and just some context for how it works now. It's Jack was on Ched for several years, and then when Kevin Quinn left Sportsnet, Jack went to do the TV games. And so throughout the season, he's mostly on TV, about 65 to 70 games a year. When there's a national game during the regular season, he's on Ched. Cam Moon, who I'm sure you know or encountered over the years, came from the Red Deer Rebels and does all the Oilers radio games that Jack doesn't. So that's most of the regular season. And now we have Jack for every playoff game. The great thing about Jack is he just has that sense of how to build it, and he's always got something left in the tank. Like it's a big moment, it's a tense moment, and you think, okay, that's Max Jack, but he always has a little bit left for the final seconds or in case it gets a little bit even more dramatic. And of course, a lot of play-by-play announcers in hockey are defined by their goal calls, and Jack has a great goal call, don't get me wrong, but to me, Jack's excellence is how he calls those final minutes of games. And that was just a perfect demo tape, I guess. He doesn't need one, but you know what I mean? It'd be like it's that perfect slice of why he's so good, of what he was able to do in that final minute against Dallas. Final minute against Vancouver was also excellent.
Okay, so you got the Florida Panthers. You got the longest travel schedule of a Stanley Cup final, and the lead up to game number 1 on Saturday. My theory is every Edmonton Oiler is in a hyperbaric chamber, if they still use those, because they've learned their lesson. The guys were out of gas at the end of last year, and they want to ensure that they got full tanks. What is the team doing in the lead up?
Well, they took Monday off. They took yesterday off. After I talk to you, I'm going to head over to Rogers Place. They're having a team meeting and doing an availability with some of the guys. So it doesn't look like they'll be on the ice today. There'll probably be ice available, I guess, if guys want to go out there. But it doesn't seem like it'll be a practice. Probably a full practice tomorrow. Travel Thursday. Then I would think practice Friday with the media day in Sunrise. And then the game Saturday. So that's what I expect for the week.
And the message to the team, guys, this is the biggest time of your life. Don't be an idiot. Don't do anything dumb.
I think that's exactly what Knobloch will say. Just write "Don't be an idiot" on the whiteboard, and they'll be fine. Let Tkachuk be the idiot. That's what they'll say. Though he's not an idiot anymore. Maurice said yesterday he doesn't take bad penalties anymore, unless he's playing Brady.
As a friend pointed out to me, watch with the Florida Panthers during the Stanley Cup final. They don't complain after any penalty calls against them. They are a very disciplined team. Quickly, before we let you go, Reid, you sat in with Jay and I behind the scenes. You watched Fox Sports Live, the show that we thought was going to be a hit. You saw it from the ground floor. Are you surprised that it's still not on TV?
That's a horrible way to phrase that question. Well, what a leading question. Well, look, you guys did a great job, obviously. I do think...
No, we didn't. We were on the show for 2 minutes in a 3-hour show.
That was... Well, I think the day I was actually there, of course I watched it on other occasions, and sometimes Jay sent me links or whatever. But the day I was there, you guys did an hour. Then there was a 1-hour baseball show in the middle, and Jay was like, yeah, sometimes that happens. And then you guys were on for another hour at the end. So it was just that struck me as odd. I mean, you guys were the same as you were on TSN, still funny, still doing your great stuff. Producer Tim was okay, but you guys were peak. He is listening, right? But no,
you just mentioned one of the biggest problems was you had 30 producers.
Oh, it wasn't just Tim?
He did our segment, but there was a different producer for every segment of a 3-hour show. That's too many conductors on a train.
That's sad. Yeah. Are they still? Does Fox Sports 1 still exist? Do they still have a highlight show?
Of course it does. No highlight shows. It's like Xfinity Series races. They got NASCAR qualifying and stuff like that.
That's what I remember. I went with you guys. I went with Jay the one day, and then I visited Jay in four times while you guys were down there, which was great for me. Like, what a nice holiday. But the one time I watched with Jay's wife, and there was a NASCAR truck race on before you guys. And the race finished. So it was like this. And they're at the line, and John Wilson wins. What an amazing finish. Off to Jay and Dan on Fox Sports Live. And then your intro played, and it was like, hey, I'm Jay Onright. Hey, I'm Dan O'Toole. Back to the racetrack for post-game coverage. And I was like, what is going on? And his wife said, the people who want to see the post-game race coverage will now stay, but the ratings count for Jay and Dan's show. So that's why they do it that way. Is that true?
That's right. We were trying to find a glitch in the matrix. That was our little backdoor entry into getting 7 people watching.
Yeah. But it was like, that's literally like, speaking of Jack, like it literally would have been like if Jack was like, and Draisaitl blocks it at the line. This game is over. The Oilers go to the Stanley Cup final. Here's Ken Reid and Ivanka on Sportsnet. Like that. That's what it would have been like. And then they would have been like, back to Jack and Bob for more. Or I guess Chris and Craig or whoever. Yeah.
We did everything we could. And you mentioned visiting L.A. I discovered that now that I've moved back to Canada. Now I've been back for, 7-8 years. I had visitors at least once a month. And then you move back to Ontario and the visitors all dry up.
Plus you're in a town that's
you guys
not
were flying down all the time.
You're in a town that's, I believe, not even on the map of Ontario.
Hey, it's the home of Stanley Cup champion Brian Bickle.
Well, true. What is it? Orono?
You got it. Boomsies.
Orono. Okay.
Yeah.
What do I win?
You win a guest returning spot whenever you want to come back.
Well, if they win the cup, I hope you have me on, or you have Jack on at least. Have you ever had Jack on?
No, I would love.
You'd need to budget a lot of time, though.
I am a massive
He's quite
fan.
loquacious. Yeah. Oh, he would come
Line
on.
that up for me.
Yeah, I'll talk to him later today.
Perfect.
You don't have his number?
Okay. No, send me his number. You line that up. You've got an Oilers practice to get to. We don't want to hold you up. Reid, you're the best. I'm so happy for your city, so happy for Oilers fans, and I'm so happy that a Canadian team is in the Cup final.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan. It's great to see you. I hope we talk again soon.
I hope that happens as well.